on the road again. I just can't wait to get on the road
Well,
again.
Charles, we're here in Sarajevo.
It's amazing. I mean, we made it through the sniper fire and everything.
Right.
It was a bit we had to really run. I mean,
Right.
That's more running than I've done in a long time.
Just like Hillary Clinton, we arrived under heavy sniper fire.
We did, indeed. I was amazed. Dodging those bullets.
Why are we here, Charles?
Well, we're here in Sarajevo. This is the first edition of our road trip special. We're hopefully in time going to do many of these around the world because there's a lot of hot spots we could talk about. We thought to come to Sarajevo because I know so little about it, even though I have been on and off been associated with people who've been trying to do good works here. And people are talking a lot about an imminent world war happening over problems between the U.S. and China, problems with Iran, problems in the Middle East, civil war in the United States. And for a lot of reasons, it made sense to come here to the start, the place where the First World War actually started in 1914 at a bridge with an assassination that I thought we should see.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know if a lot of people really associate the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand with Sarajevo. You always hear that him getting assassinated was the spark that ignited the flame of World War I. But I don't know that I've ever heard about it being spoken about in the context of Sarajevo. So that's going to be interesting for people to see. Just earlier we did a bit of a walking tour. And why don't we allow people to take a look at that?
I think that's a great idea.
Charles, we're not in my apartment.
We're not. We got lost. Could be the alternative, Jason and Charles.
Well, the thing that's interesting about why don't you tell everybody where we are?
Well, 105 years ago, this dude, who was a pretty important dude, like a really important dude, was walking along this bridge.
This very bridge.
This very bridge in the town of Sarajevo, in what is now Bosnia, which is actually where we are.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, we're not in Chicago, we're not in Baltimore. We survived the sniper fire, here we are. And anyway, 105 years ago, June 28th, the Archduke, Cardinal, whatever his name was, Ferdinand was walking along this bridge with an entourage thinking he was safe. And that turned out not to be true.
Right. The thing that's amazing to me about this, Charles, is that you always hear about how the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand kicked off World War II. World War I. But it seems like this distant, sort of spectacular thing. And then you come here, and the guy was basically just walking down the street and got shot.
With an entourage, thinking that he was safe here in Sarajevo. And it's kind of cool that you can, there are quite a few people who come to this site. There's a crowd gathering over there as we speak.
This is a dumb question, Charles, but what was he the Archduke of?
We'll figure that out. I forget exactly. It might have been Austro-Hungary.
So he was just hanging out here?
I guess he was visiting, and he was walking. He thought he was safe. He was walking across here. He gets assassinated. One thing turns into another. Next thing you know, you got World War I. I mean, in a very precipitous, quick way.
Well, the question, of course, is that one of these, was that 105-year-old social engineering, where they wanted him dead and just somehow figured out that that's a way to start a war?
There had been tensions brewing in many different directions, and there were many more nations back then that were fractured, and there had not been nation building. We can go across quickly. And some say it escalated out of control. It should not have become a world war, but it did.
Right. So it's almost like they wanted that, and they're like, let's kill this guy and make it happen.
And it seemed to me, and to you, I think, that we're sort of on the verge of World War III. The esteemed idiot, former Secretary John Kerry, has decided to wage World War Zero. He said that last week. I couldn't believe it, too. It's World War Zero, zero carbon emissions. But it sure looks to me like we're on the verge of World War III. So I thought we should go into the time tunnel, time phone hack it, and find ourselves here in Sarajevo, which nobody's going to believe unless we take a picture of that.
Right. Well, we've got the
sign.
photo proof to show. I personally believe that World War III began on September 11th, 2001.
Could well have. Sad to say.
It's kind of a beautiful city in its own way. There's a lot of damage and destruction here. We're going to walk around a bit and show people some of Sarajevo. There's so little known, I think, by most Americans about the history and even the current status of Sarajevo, the war in the 90s that
Right.
the Clintons were very involved in. So,
And H.W. Bush. I mean, that
and
war.
HW.
That war began in 2001. In 91, and it concluded in 95. It was grisly. We have some photos that we're going to hopefully upload to the show to see you. I was in Srebrenica yesterday on a tour, and you know, it's every bit as evocative as going down to the 9/11 site in New York and seeing. It's a less developed site, but where we're standing right now is in the flat of Sarajevo, and I don't know, Jason, if you can pan up there, but you see the beautiful hillsides, and they look beautiful all around us.
It is.
Until you realize that what was going on up in those hills from, I don't know if it was precisely 91, but through 95, you had snipers shooting on people down here in the flat, trying to kill children and men and depopulate this of its principally then Muslim population. And it was a bloodbath. And you know, you go back into that history in 1991, we had successfully liberated Kuwait, and some would say was a masterful operation. A big coalition was put together, but the public was not interested, the American public, in getting involved in another nation-building exercise. So HW did not step up to the plate in his final 2 years, and of course Bill Clinton bungled this horribly. And not enough has been told about the true happenings here in Bosnia, the continued fractured condition that are on the ground here. And this story really does need to be told. So we're going to begin telling it by this city tour today.
Let's take a little walk and see. There seems to be some sort of guided tour here in front of the museum. That I know we want to see that sign.
We can come back and film.
Yeah, let's take a walk and
Sure.
just allow people to see what's going on here in Sarajevo. Charles, I mean, it's one of these things where we've heard dopes like Ocasio-Cortez say that the...
You mean occasional use of no cortex.
Yeah, boy, this thing is hard to keep straight. She said that the immigration detention centers in the United States are concentration camps. She should be slapped for that, because
I mean, that's really an offense to anybody who has connections to people who've been through actual concentration camps, which existed here in Bosnia and, of course, across Europe in World War II.
And of course, everyone always equates that comment to World War II and being offensive to Jewish people, but I don't think people even know that there were concentration camps here in Sarajevo, and that happened within our lifetime. So that's, you know, when we have totally ignorant people in Congress spreading inflammatory nonsense, it doesn't really help to educate people as to what's really going on. And so here we see there's a big graffiti problem I've observed. There's a lot of graffiti pretty much everywhere around, and not seemingly too much effort to
do anything about it.
Right. I mean, you know, it's a very European city, obviously. People who've been to maybe more kind of not mainstream cities. It's not like Paris or something like that, but there are aspects of it that are reflective of other
That's a nice coat for you, Jason.
Yeah, I'd look great in that.
Jason and the Technicolor Dream Coat.
Yeah, it's like a pimp outfit. You get that on. But
well, you're back on occasional cortex, use of a cortex. I mean, people are fond of saying that you ought to have a license to be able to use a gun. You ought to have to pass a basic test in economics and knowledge of the Constitution before you're allowed to run for Congress, let alone hold a position in Congress. She is dumber than an idiot, and it's just amazing to me that the press would give her as much time as they give her, and that Ilhan Omar and Tlaib and others. It's disgusting.
Yeah, they're really doing a big disservice to the public. Got a little bit of a tour group here. Excuse us. So it's interesting for people to just observe, you know, this remote town.
I think we're on the other side of that. We'll have to check and see if this is what I think it is. I think this is the. This used to be a museum. It's an old. I believe it's an old house. It was turned.
The domes on the top.
Yeah. I think if we go over here. Well, actually, Jason, there's a mosque over there.
Let's take a look.
It's better seen from here, I think.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot of history in this city, Charles. I don't think people, I mean, including me, even know too much in terms of what started that whole war. I mean, it was obviously after the fall of the Soviet Union and all the communist sort of countries around were under pressure. Should we go in the shade a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, this used to be obviously part of Yugoslavia. And so prior to Marshal Tito taking over, which I think was 81, he died in 81. After World War II, Marshal Tito unified a bunch of territory that was very difficult to control. This territory has ancient, predominantly, you say Bosnia, modern day Bosnia has ancient Muslim heritage, but this city, Sarajevo, we're right near a place that has a church, next to a synagogue, next to mosque, yeah. And they coexisted for centuries peacefully.
And you know, you told me that yesterday, and something interesting occurred to me. One of the very first digitally shot 3D films to come out that hasn't been widely seen is something called U2 3D, and friends of mine worked on that. I've seen it quite a few times. There's a piece in there, a song from U2 called Miss Sarajevo, and at the end of it they have this big graphic that says coexista.
Yeah.
And it's got, you know, all the symbols of those different religions. So I guess Bono and U2 know more about this than I did, but it's interesting how you learn those kind of things.
From Bono.
Well, I learned it from Charles.
Yeah.
So look at all this stuff, Charles.
Yeah, it's
really
nice.
I mean, this kind of looks like Smurf Village. There's a lot of beauty. And when we were flying in, there's so much lush greenery around here. I don't think people in the United States really know much of anything about Bosnia.
Yeah, and today is September 29th, and so it's, you know, technically in fall. Yes, some people, idiots like me, are wearing coats, but in the main, people are dressed for summer and enjoying
Good lobster in Maine right now.
It's a bluebird day, you know, nice sunny day, beautiful early fall day.
Yeah. So what were the other sites that we wanted to check out around here?
We wanted to see that house down the way.
Let's check it out.
Meanwhile, we can get some bric-a-brac to bring back to your parents if you like.
I think it's pronounced Burg.
See, there's another, I think, mosque spire over there.
Yeah. And so what's the primary language here in Sarajevo?
I don't know, honestly. Bosnian? Maybe? I don't know. People speak, a fair number of people speak English.
Right. Actually,
thankfully.
You know, people I've met from this part of the world are among the best educated I've ever met, and certainly speak English very well. I mean, in the United States.
Yeah. Well, I, of course, hadn't been to much of Eastern Europe until the 90s. And I'm surprised every time I come to Eastern Europe to see how beautiful some of the old buildings are that predated communism. And it's really just amazing. Now, where did that building go? Oh, it was right here. That wasn't the building.
You know, the other thing that's interesting is as we were driving around, some of the buildings are very reminiscent. I mean, the only other place that I've been.
That's so nice.
You want to go in there?
Yeah, let's go in there. We can get, by the way, if you need any of this for a baby, across the way.
Nappies or whatever those things are called. Bib.
This is a nice garden.
You can really see the kind of remnants of communism and how, not here so much where we are right now, but as we were driving around, you could really see some of the really drab kind of slightly terrible buildings with definitely newer looking ones that seem to have the capitalist influence. So what's the story with the economy here now, Charles?
The economy has got, unfortunately, a large black money gangster element. So There are the major multinationals are here. You'll see signs of Microsoft and Oracle and all the logical
two
ones.
biggest buildings
Right.
there.
But I think there's the main business here in Bosnia is money laundering. We were driving all over the place, and I remarked, why are there so many gas stations? And the reason is they drive up to the gas station with a big pile of cash and pay for gas, but they don't get any gas. It's just a way of
Is that known?
accepting cash.
Wow.
And so apparently in this area there's a gigantic element of recycling dirty money. So they'll take cars, they'll steal cars, they'll bring them into Bosnia, they'll sell them elsewhere, etc. Unfortunately, it hasn't yet developed a real market-based economy, but it's a small country. It's like 4 million people.
But it's not technically communist anymore, is it?
No. It's I don't know what the technical form of government is, but it's definitely not communist.
Kleptocracy. Hence the Clintons'
That's right.
penchant for it. So what can we say about the United States' role in the war here under Bill Clinton?
Well, it was a disaster. I mean, what they prided themselves on was not getting involved in any way in a land war or any time of nation building. What they did is bombed Serbia from the ground, from the air.
Oops.
And that effort, I think, was led by Wesley Clark.
Right.
And another rogue scholar or
See, I think
Rhodes
a lot
scholar.
of people like Wesley Clark because he gave that speech where he reveals that the United States had plans to destroy 7 countries in 5 years.
Yeah, well, I don't trust a word that comes out of that man's mouth. And I mean, the Clintons are prone, going around the world, as the Bushes are, taking credit for anything good that they can attach themselves to.
Right.
But then distancing themselves from all the horrible things. You think under Bill Clinton's tenure, right, in 92, January 93 to January 2001, China was just finding its feet. It was a small economy, tiny economy relative to what it is in 2019. India was hopeless then. Europe was still not privatized, so it was heavily socialist and inefficient industries. We were the unipower. We really were.
Yeah.
And Bill, when he was president, could have exercised American might for the better around the world, which of course he did not do. He screwed things up, in my opinion, here in Bosnia, in this portion of the world, former Yugoslavia, and not to mention Rwanda, where 500,000 people were slaughtered under his presidency. And we could have intervened to stop that. I mean, here it was 8,000. 500,000 is a large number.
That looks like a mosque dome. What do we got there?
I think, let's go over there, and there's, I think, a church tower next to it.
Sure, let's take a look.
All right.
It's really interesting. So, I mean, this isn't downtown Sarajevo, or is it?
It is. Yeah. This is the old town, the center of the town.
Right. And I think people will remember, what was it, 1984 Olympics were here?
I think so, yeah. There's ski mountains right outside, technically not in Bosnia, but in the Republika Srpska, which is, that's a real black money gangster haven.
I never even heard of that.
Or they refer to it as the RS. Let's just take a quick look here. Look at this bookstore, and then look at this art. It's very intricate designs, quite interesting. And these are the books that Hillary and Barack Obama are writing, translated to Bosnian.
Yeah, children's books. Interesting.
Yeah.
So let's proceed this way. This is a good departure from our normal format, Charles.
Don't we do this every week? A different
Exactly. This is a bit like, we should go eat some weird food and pretend we're Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah, that's right. Now, I don't know what this, there's no video there.
Is that what it says?
Yeah. I just says video crossed out, so I figured that's what it means.
What is that?
I think that's a mosque.
What about video?
Yeah, it's definitely a mosque. You're not supposed to take a picture of it.
No, not at all?
No.
I thought they just meant inside. Why do they not want pictures of it?
I think I'm not sure exactly. Actually in Islam there are no images inside mosques of humans or animals. Here's a silver shop.
When we did Daydreams of Dubai, we had a day scheduled to go to the Sheikh Zayed Mosque. They had a whole elaborate thing planned.
Yeah, but inside the mosque, there are no, unlike Christianity, which has pictures of Jesus and renderings of God and the apostles and all that stuff. There's none of that.
And they kill you if you try to do it.
And this says, let's see, this is in Arabic, and it says something about, I don't know.
This reminds me of Rome.
Let's just see what that looks like, an old building over there to the left. Do you need me on the other side?
What's that?
Need me on your other side?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's right. It's just easier to frame.
Now, what is this?
So,
this is...
It's a museum, I guess.
This is a madrasa. It's a school.
Ah. Doesn't Musée...
1537 to 1538, this was built.
Wow. Oh, look at the address, Charles.
30. There you go.
Wow.
Right next to where JFK was assassinated in Dallas.
Wow. That's weird.
And if you do it subtly, you might be able to take a picture of the mosque if you do it subtly to your right as we're walking down. I don't know how we would do that.
I'm going to include it in a selfie.
Should we continue walking, or?
Absolutely.
All right.
So here's the mosque, I guess, or some
Subtly.
aspect of it.
Here's a French tourism group ready to surrender. French surrender tour.
It's funny that the thing is called Slatique Boutique Dallas.
Exactly.
There's the French flag.
Get out of the way of him, or what shall we do?
Yeah, I'd like to. We're getting
Front
sort
of
of stuck in the morass here.
Typical Americans barging through the French.
Yes. So
I think we're up ahead. There's a big, it looks like a church or maybe a mosque. Straight ahead, there's some sort of important building up there.
now, wasn't there some element of the Spanish Inquisition that led to all of the?
Right. So what happened was beginning in 1492, yeah, there's another big mosque up ahead. Beginning in 1492, with the in Spain and in Portugal, where they kicked the Jews out, they went to Amsterdam and they went to Athens and they went to Sarajevo. So there's an ancient, there are ancient connections.
Look at this stuff.
Yeah, it looks really nice.
It's an ancient connection. Sorry, I didn't.
Sorry, the
mean to
ancient the Jews had settled here by around after 1492, and of course they put up synagogues and other buildings and traded heavily from this area east to Istanbul, west to Western Europe.
we're caught up in the tour again.
We're back on the tour.
Okay, hang
Better
on.
start. Where is Waldo?
Wow, we're getting a really good view of the mosque now.
Yeah, it's a nice, very pleasant. It reminds you of Manhattan, right? In no way.
Yeah. Sorry, I keep interrupting you. The ancient trading of.
Yeah, so this city, it's not like it sprang up in 1972 as a strip mall. I mean, this has been around for a long time, and you would think it would have the ability to work the kinks out of the system, and instead, the international unregulated globalist system obliterated this place.
Right.
And nobody yet has paid the price in history for screwing this place up, and more importantly, for failing to take care of the people harmed most by the failure of the international community to both avert war and then to figure out who was truly hurt, help those who were truly hurt and their descendants, and try to make sure that it never happens again.
Right. And I guess the thing that I was observing when we were driving around town was that's socialism's effects that we're seeing, even before all the war and everything. Those lousy buildings and.
We keep going away from the French.
Oh yeah. it just, it doesn't, everybody who's rooting for socialism in the United States right now, I think doesn't get it, because, as I was looking around, I noticed some subtle things, like the buses around are sort of like damaged looking in a way that you would never see in a United States city. They needed paint, they needed repairs, subtle things, but the cumulative effect is a sort of a lower grade experience in day-to-day life. Things don't really work as well in terms of the internet and...
Well, the internet works reasonably well, not for your purposes, but for my purposes in the city. But you're right. Oh, that's the famous museum that they wanted us to see straight ahead. That thing was obliterated in the war and has since been rebuilt.
Oh, right.
And here you have a steakhouse. But when we think about socialism, one needs to remember, around the world really, very few people have capital. Most people spend what they earn or borrow more, borrow to cover their expenses.
Right.
Very few people over their lifetimes today have more than $500 in the U.S. available to do anything, let alone consider investing in stocks or bonds.
Most people have debt.
Right, and so the way to liberate yourself is not to embrace the theory that you're going to steal the rich people's money, because that just causes capital flight from your country eventually.
Right.
It's to encourage people from an early age, when you get a paycheck, first thing you should do is pay yourself. Take some money out of your paycheck and put it away and save. You start doing that when you're 18 or 20 or 25. If you live to be 65, excuse us. Pardon?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't want to get between that lady and the dessert cart.
Twist your ankle either.
Yeah. So then you'll actually have some money. So here, locked down under Eastern Europe, the leaders of the countries and the former Soviet Union, the leaders lived like kings and queens and emperors and empresses, but the average person lived poorly.
Not in Queens.
No. And so socialism has never worked anywhere. It certainly will not work in the U.S., and it's not going to happen in the U.S.
Yeah, it's a terrible idea. All right, so we're closer now to this museum, and people can get a better look. Maybe we'll walk around this.
Yeah.
It does look brand new, so it's been majorly restored. We got a good view of the hillside as well. This is what I mean by that Smurf Village look.
And there's that funicular thing that goes up to the top.
Right. And I had never heard that term before, but it looks like a ski lift to me.
Right, that's what it is. So do you want to shut it off and look around, or do you want to keep...
No, not at all. This is great material. I think people will enjoy seeing this. A vernacular, huh?
No, funicular. Funicular. I-C-U-L-A-R.
Got it.
And there's a fun Mercedes.
That's a Volkswagen.
There's a,
this one.
Yeah, and there's a Scruffy. A big one.
Yeah, that dude looks like a tough customer. So what is this museum, Charles?
I think it's the main museum here in Sarajevo. I'm not sure. We can walk by it and check it out. We might be able to go in with a camera even.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a remarkably beautiful day.
Oh, gorgeous.
You come to a place on a day like this, and it's hard to imagine the gunfire and the war.
Coming from right over there.
It's really...
During the war, we'd be dead.
Right,
now.
Just from standing here.
Just they would shoot us right now.
We're lucky that's not happening anyway.
That could happen later.
Yes.
But you don't have the light just. The facade of this building was basically destroyed
from the war
during that period. Yeah. Now let's move along quickly. Yeah.
Oh, we just missed the bus, but that was one of these very dilapidated looking kind of trams or whatever it is.
Yeah. But seriously, beautiful day. I hope it's not too sunny for the camera.
No.
And this is the City Hall.
City Hall?
Completed in 1894. Hit with heavy and flammable artillery in the night between 25 and 26 August 1992, burning it down and causing it to collapse.
Wow.
Now look at it.
So it's really a recreation, I guess.
Yeah, and this was, it had the holdings of the National University Library, and they couldn't save most of the books, but they saved some important books, including, actually I think the story is that Muslims saved a very important early Jewish set of books that was in the synagogue here, but they saved it.
Wow.
So we could maybe walk along.
Let's do it. It's beautiful architecture.
Yeah, maybe we walk this way and so
Sure.
you don't get run over.
Oh yeah, more tours.
Apparently, Sarajevo in particular has become quite popular as a tourism location.
Yeah, we saw a bunch of signs over by the airport about Dubai, and there's some mosques that have been built by Saudi Arabia that even saw the Saudi Arabian flag on one of them.
Right, and they, well, because this is a Muslim city and it's very livable. The climate is certainly better than Riyadh. Let's see. Yeah, Serbian criminals set on fire over 2 million books, periodicals, and documents vanished in the flame.
2 million. Holy cow.
Now, actually, if you see over here, Jason, these intricate shapes and mosaics are common throughout the Islamic world. And they're really, I like math and I like geometry. It's really very difficult to do what these people have done.
From a construction standpoint?
Just to think it through, the math to make the pieces all work and have them be.
Doesn't it seem like a Jewish star there in the center of the?
You would know. I think it has more prongs than a Jewish star, but
no, that's exactly it right there.
Isn't it 6?
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh, these connecting pieces, but not these.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Breathtaking stained glass ceiling.
Oh,
look, you can get a paper model of it and build one at home. Sarajevo City Hall. So, yeah, that's pretty interesting that so much religious imagery is involved in the government. It's really so hot.
Yeah, should we go around the corner?
Yeah.
Get in the shade?
Yeah.
I think you see a rampart building up there.
Oh, yeah.
That's my kind of place. Out of the way. You'll have a lot of advance notice if anyone's trying to take you away. See that big thing up there?
I do, yeah. So do we know what that is?
I don't. It looks like some kind of a fort.
Yeah.
You can see the wall below it.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe if we go around the corner, we'll see a few more things, and we'll be out of the noisy area.
Yeah, let's do it. There's another spire there.
That's that would be a part of a mosque.
Yeah.
Now, beautiful hills today, safe, but how easy would it be just to take out a rifle and start picking people off from those hills? You'd never know where they were coming from.
Well, that's the next question: is what ended it? Was one side or the other satisfied with whatever they were trying
this
to
guy,
achieve?
a fellow who's thankfully still dead, Richard Holbrook, put together what are called the Dayton Accords, which some would say did not punish the Serbs severely enough, and did not really go into the root causes of why the conflict erupted, and has left behind, some would argue, a festering sore that could erupt again.
Oh boy.
And it's testimony to the fact, when you host these international conferences, the only people who win are the caterers if they get paid. There's never any true enforcement out of these things. You never see the whole deal. There's never a real binding deal. There's never incisive investigation into the root causes of the conflict. And these unregulated globalists get to fly around the world private, staying in their presidential suites and having their banquets and their cognacs and their cigars.
But doesn't it seem, Charles, like there would be some resentment if there's a thousands-year-old conflict here and then somebody from the United States, which is like an infant compared to that, comes and tells them what to do to resolve it?
Well, that's sort of what we do.
I mean, but that's ridiculous, isn't it?
Well, I think the theory is, in that period in '95 forward, really from '89 forward, in particular, the United States has been, by way of spending in terms of the economy, the largest unified market in the world with the biggest military in the world, and frankly, the most involved in military activities around the world.
Right.
So you and I have grown up in that environment. We accept the idea that if a problem breaks out in some foreign land, we should spill U.S. blood to solve the problem.
But even beyond that, you know, it's kind of interesting
Sure.
because we started this walking tour on the bridge where the Archduke Ferdinand was shot. We always hear about that, but who is it that shot him?
I think nobody knows actually. I mean, they
There
have the
you
name.
go.
They have the name of the person, but they don't know. I don't believe his true background.
Well, right. So how do we know that for whatever strategic purpose, you know, the United States or England or whoever could be starting these conflicts, and then we come in like, oh, we'll resolve it, and by the way, we'll take your oil and install our guy to be the president.
Well, I think that's exactly what's happening now in the United States. Donald Trump was elected, skeptical of deploying our troops in harm's way around the world. The people who profit from deploying our troops and selling our military armaments started thinking about that, and the people who are all in for unregulated globalism, the Brits,
Right.
politicians in the smaller European and other countries, say, no, wait a minute, this guy Trump is a threat to our ability to steal money while pretending we're the good people. I mean, on the in the recent week, there was a story. We don't have slides for this edition, but there was a story confirming what I've been saying to the viewers for a long time, that over the last 30 years, the average worker in America has seen his or her income be flat to down, whereas a small percentage of proponents of unregulated globalism have become stinking rich.
Sounds like socialism, Charles.
Well,
Globalism, I mean.
yeah, I think that's another mosque tower.
It's really such a beautiful city.
I'm confused as to where we are at this moment.
Oh yeah, me too. There's a computer store.
You want to go in and see?
No, but it's just an interesting kind of anachronism here in this ancient town.
Should we walk this way or that way, or? I think
you.
we came this way before.
Oh, we've seen this before, the address.
Yeah, I think
Cafe.
if we go down that way. How did these pigeons get here from Manhattan?
Right.
Were they? Did you check them?
Pigeon is an interesting bird in that regard, isn't it? They're everywhere.
Well, you don't like it when they crap on you, that's for sure.
It's not too much about pigeons that I'm really
You mean
a big fan.
You're not going to enjoy lunch then? So we're winding our way through the center of Sarajevo on a beautiful Sunday afternoon,
Yeah.
or morning actually.
look
Hey,
at
there's a
that.
comic book shop, Jason.
That's what I was looking at. It's got
So-
the weird Illuminati pyramid on the top of it.
You want to see if there's anything that you want to get there?
I don't think so.
No? How about the art?
The whole place is sort of odd. And the Olympics are still advertised around. We saw the giant Olympic rings. I guess that was over by the airport. I can't remember where that was.
And this is the kind of place for Bill Clinton, the Strip Arnica.
Where did he say? Oh, yeah.
The Strip Arnica building.
Right. It's sort of a giant comic shop.
There. You ever been on that tour?
Funky tours? No, I haven't been on that tour. That's an interesting.
So this is a rather nondescript road here.
You know, Charles, being in a city like this that's so much different than New York, where you and I live, it also reminds us how, you know, I don't know if people are directly aware of this, but there's so many retail stores that are going out of business
Right.
in New York. Oh, I meant to tell you this. So the other day, you and I were chatting that I was going to replace a little doohickey on the computer that was $14 from Amazon.com and $29 at the local computer shop around the corner from my apartment. But I had made the decision that I was going to go buy it for $29 anyway, because I figured if that computer shop goes out of business and there's ever a time where I need something today,
Right.
guess what?
Went out of business.
I went there and they're having an 80% off sale because they're going out of business.
Well, I wonder if we shouldn't find a street to the left. So it's,
Okay,
so
away
it's
from
not-
this traffic.
Well, so it's not. I don't know how this is going to work
In terms of what?
in terms of your sound. Whether you're-
Right, yeah, we
whether
got some road noise, but it sounds okay right now. So what else did we want to discuss about the history of Sarajevo and the globalists and the Clintons, and maybe we could...
No, let's go in here.
Yeah.
So, well, yesterday I went down to Srebrenica,
Right.
and people, when you hear Srebrenica, you hear, it should evoke horror.
Except most people don't even know what it is.
So what happened was, this was an area that was originally Muslim, and they decided to depopulate it, which is a kind way of saying to kill all the little boys and the men.
Wow.
And in total, so far, they've recovered 8,372 bodies, but there are mass graves. And this is the Srebrenica Memorial. The town used to be a silver mine, an ancient Roman silver mine, or near it. Mm-hmm. And you go to the memorial, and we're going to, I hope, send pictures up that people can see of some of what I saw yesterday. And what's remarkable about it, when you compare it to the 9/11 memorial, is, here we are. I think we went by this before, but what's remarkable about it is, though an estimated 100 million in private contributions went, in theory, towards this area, it looks like maybe 2 million was spent on it.
Right.
And so, and it was. I'm not saying the Clintons were directly involved in it, but it follows the Clinton model of you have an unspeakable tragedy. Grandmothers and grandfathers and concerned people across the political spectrum send the organizers of some foundation or memorial or whatever money, and then people steal the money. And this is the essence of what's going on at the Clinton Foundation, why we've been pursuing it now for 3 years together. You see it, sure enough, there's the horror of Srebrenica, people stealing from I believe, government grants and other private contributions to commemorate it so that people will remember what really happened. And we were there standing by the side of the road.
Here, let's look at this. Standing by the side of the road, yeah.
And a car came by and somebody, gave us the finger. It was most likely a Serb. And
How do you know?
Well, because they're surrounded by Serbs now. And for years after this thing was put together, this memorial, what would happen is when the relatives of the victims or the fallen would come to visit the memorial, the Serbs would gather and they would stone the buses that would bring these people to, commemorate their lost loved ones. And, obviously that conflict has not been resolved. If we still have people thinking it's okay to do that, we haven't gone through...
At the memorial, that's low.
Yeah, we haven't gone through an exercise of saying, why did this conflict arise? What are the root causes of the conflict? It dates back evidently to the Middle Ages, when the Serbs were vanquished in a battle by Muslims, and some say by trickery, whatever. And the Serbs have been nursing this defeat and waiting for revenge for centuries.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, that's stubborn. That's
shall we
unbelievable.
keep going that way, or
Sure.
are
It's just so hot. I was enjoying the shade. That's unbelievable,
we can
Charles.
go in the shade here.
So how does the United States expect to have some kind of Davos-type conference and resolve a thousands of years old thing like that?
We're not going to.
Yes, that
In fact, there's an amusing story that in one of the process by which it was the Dayton Accords came together was a process of negotiations many places, including, I think, in Versailles and outside Paris. And I think this is a true
Look
story.
at this.
What? Oh, this is the map. East, west.
Well, but it says the meeting of cultures,
Yeah.
and it's written in English.
Otherwise known as a very bad date.
Why do you suppose it's written in English, Charles? So little stuff around here is.
Lingua franca.
That's interesting. It's
So
almost
now
like
you're in the shade again.
a dividing line.
So there's a story, and I've heard it from different sources, that the representatives of the different factions were meeting in this fancy room, and a woman opens the door. These are men meeting, a few men, and the men say to the woman, "Oh, you can come and clean this room later." And the woman was supposedly Madeleine Albright.
Oh my God. Like, you're the biggest maid I've ever seen. Here's something talking about Dubai.
Yeah. So people come from the Middle East here on vacation, particularly in the summer when it's
This looks
beastly
like
hot.
it's advertising that Burj Al Arab hotel, which is like the most expensive hotel in the world.
And Bill Clinton's travel agency,
What do you mean?
Fibula. Why? Fibula?
Where's the Tibula travel agency? Were there any other sites that we
Well, I
wanted
wanted
to
to
go to?
tell you that in a little known fact, Coca-Cola was invented here. You could tell that from the sign there, right?
This is the ancient site
Yeah,
of
of Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola invention?
Right.
Not Atlanta?
Yeah, no. That's an old wives' tale, Atlanta. It was
Right.
really invented here.
You know, the other thing that I've noticed, Charles, is that despite the overall feeling of sort of general economic depression around here compared to a city like New York or Paris or anything like that, there's a ton of banks.
Sure.
So what's that about?
I think when you are taking cash in ways that you can't explain, you need a place to deposit it. And European banks, in theory, have the same rules that we have in the United States, but in practice, if you're desperate for money, you'll bend the rules. So this is a good place to wash dirty money, in my opinion.
Right. Well, I mean, certainly less law enforcement, less sophisticated scrutiny of these types of things.
Be careful to your right. Be careful to your right.
Right. Less sophisticated scrutiny and stuff like that.
That's what happens when you become a socialist, to your over Jason's right.
Yeah.
That's what you end up doing. You have the Department of Defense and the Department of Begging.
Now, oh look, we saw this
Oh, yeah,
yesterday,
here we
the
have-
Swedish embassy.
Right. We have the Swedish embassy, the Norwegian embassy, side by side.
That's interesting.
And I guess we walk back here, we'll find a place to close out the walking tour.
Sure.
Right.
Now, isn't there a super old synagogue around here?
I think so. I think we'll find it right in a second.
Whoops.
What is that song from?
I was going to say, that sounds familiar, but I don't know.
It's from a movie.
People watching will probably recognize it.
That looks appetizing. Woody.
No.
I'll take some Woody, thank you.
Let's
Yeah,
see.
this is
Whoa.
the.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is the church, and
we're
behind
in
it
the right
is
spot.
is the synagogue up ahead here.
Right. So see, that is really an ongoing theme here, is coexisting peacefully. It's ironic that that's been unable to happen. Let's look at this statue of the Pope. That's pretty.
They made it in aluminum because
yeah.
they make aluminum here in this country.
I wonder if Oleg Deripaska has anything to do with that. It's an impressive church. Now, it's got gun damage, right? Like bullet holes over here.
Well, you can't help it if you're shooting down from there.
So this
Il
is
Papa.
Yeah, the Pope.
That's I don't know who that was. Whoever the Pope was who died in 2005.
Yeah, again, people
Pope
watching.
John.
will probably-
Ivan is John, I guess. So Pope John.
Oh, John Paul, probably, right?
Pope John Paul II. That's what it is.
There you go.
Lived 85 years.
Ivan is John. I
Right.
didn't know that. Wow. Okay. So
Well,
yeah,
you
here's
should come to Sarajevo more often. We'll learn.
right. I learned things. So here we can see some of the bullet damage.
Lots of it.
Yeah. I'm kind of surprised they don't fix that stuff. But I guess perhaps they want to remember it. So we got the church.
And I think the synagogue is around the corner.
Yeah.
You remember? See, further proof that Coke was invented here.
Right.
Yeah, this is the building that used to be owned by, I think, a Turkish arms merchant who later in life, he had a whole bunch of books and he wanted to give them to the city, so he put the books in that building. And the synagogue, I believe, is over here to the right. So you have a big church. Unless I have that wrong.
We might be a little turned around here. It's a confusing city, I'll say that.
Because I think we parked over there.
Yeah, we were doing a lot of walking around.
There's definitely
yesterday.
a synagogue around here. I don't think they knocked it down.
Since yesterday?
Since yesterday. I think this was here yesterday.
So Charles, I think everybody, going back for a moment to the United States and to current events, I think everybody is interested in hearing your thoughts about the whistleblower complaint and the fact that they conspicuously changed the rules in August, allowing hearsay information to be the impetus to impeach a president. I mean, you can't even enter hearsay information from Manuel Chavez into a civil Robert David Steele lawsuit. How can it be used as evidence to take out the President of the United States?
I don't know, Jason. I wonder, maybe it's not this way, and maybe we should go down away from all the noise to answer your question. Because I don't.
Yeah. Let's just go down this way.
Yeah.
So on a serious note, I mean, this is such overt manipulation to change the rules, allowing secondhand information.
Right. If we were to do slides today, which we're not going to do, unfortunately, because of the logistics, what I would have done, and we'll do it for the next show, is go back over the timeline. The Mueller report drops in July 2019. This whistleblower complaint goes in around then. It becomes known to Adam Schiff by August 12th, or it begins brewing right around then. And I think we have to go back over the whole timeline. We have to figure out when was it. Well, we have to go back to the point where a decision was made to allow all of Hillary Clinton's communications to go over an unsecure system, away from the government email, away from SCIFs, away from all that. Who made that decision, and then who covered it up?
Right.
Right? And so there needs to be a detailed timeline going all the way back to then, if not beforehand, taken up forward to the Trump election, and then to what happened. And how did the resistance come together so quickly? Who funded it? Why was Brennan so involved in it? And I think what we see is that this declassification effort and the looming Inspector General report, all that stuff is bubbling up to the surface. We know now that there are rumors today on Sunday that 30 people or thereabouts are vulnerable.
I'm surprised it's not 33.
Yeah, it could be. Approximately 30 people are vulnerable to being prosecuted for mishandling classified information under the Obama era. And that Carl Bernstein apparently dropped that. And that investigation is whipping up to a frenzy. Attorney General Barr apparently is in Italy now meeting, some think, with Massoud or with the people around Massoud.
Not on a Perillo tour.
Not on a Perillo tour, no. And
people in Queens have seen that commercial.
Right, and then Hillary Clinton today, in at least local time, is quoted in a Sarah Carter piece as saying that Donald Trump has been running an extortion racket.
Well, she would know.
She would know how to do that, and that's what she wants to get set to do again. So I think if we patiently go back, the Crowdsource, the Truth people have been so helpful, we go back, we reconstruct a detailed timeline, what was happening, and then we pick it up during 2016, or we pick up, why did the Inspector General report that was released July 6th, 2015, why did it take so long? Why did the FBI take 4 days to open up an investigation? July 10th, 2015, why didn't that come home well before the primaries, giving the Democrats an opportunity not to run Hillary Clinton?
Right.
There are a lot of why did this happen, why not this, and we got to go back over that ground. When did the targeting of Trump begin? Was it in 2016? Might it have been earlier? Obama spied, his people spied on Cheryl Atkinson, they spied on the Supreme Court, they spied on foreign leaders, they spied on senators and congresspeople. When did the whole decision come about that that's okay?
Right.
And then when did it become necessary to do everything possible to cover it up once Donald Trump was elected? I mean, there's motive, means, and opportunity. In the period from the 7th of November or the 8th or whatever the day was until January 20th. Obama was still in power, 2017. So what were they doing in that period to try to set traps up for the president? How many spies remain in the Trump White House and the executive branch?
Right.
And why is this all whipping up to a frenzy now to impeach him? In a way that it's rumored will not involve Republicans at all. The Democrats are going to draft the articles, they're going to spring it, and then they're going to try to make a big issue of whether Mitch McConnell will act on it or not act on it. They're going to whip that into a frenzy. They're going to try to impeach Kavanaugh. They're going to throw all kinds of stink bombs. But I think the American people know better.
Impeach Kavanaugh. You know, I was reading that sort of thin international version of the New York Times on the plane.
Why?
That's all they had in English. And it was David, what's the guy's name? It was like an op-ed, and he was talking about how they shouldn't impeach Trump. But he opens it with, Trump is guilty, but impeaching him would hurt America. So I think he's trying to appeal to people who think, oh, this guy's even-handed because he knows the facts, but he's speaking about, how does he come out and say Trump is guilty? What are they even saying he's guilty of?
Well,
you read that transcript and...
Right. That's reprehensible. I mean, we have people in both parties, the Bushes especially, but certainly the Clintons and the Obamas and others, they reluctantly, let's say, campaign for highest offices, and then next thing you know, their sons and daughters are instant multimillionaires.
Well, that's exactly Joe Biden. He,
right.
Remember, in 2016, was very reluctant about running for president, talking about how he's too old, right. His teeth are falling out, his eyes are falling out.
And his brain only runs in reverse.
Barely functional. That's an extremely cute little dog over there.
Take a picture of it.
Yep.
It's lunch.
Oh. People are gonna... Look at that little puppy walking there. So we need some more cats and dogs in the videos to really blow up the viewership. But anyway, Charles, we're getting off topic here, photographing dogs.
So on the question of Ukraine, it's a good question. It turns out, so what they're trying to do is argue that a call that Trump had with the leader is somehow influence peddling, using the U.S. government to ask the Ukrainians to target a political rival or enemy in the Biden and his family. And that's precisely what happened under the Obama administration. I mean, that's
against Trump.
Against Trump, right? It's not even close. And what they're going down is, I call it the Irish compromise. You find you did something wrong and I did something wrong, and we both agree. Well, we both did something wrong. We shouldn't do it again, and we leave it alone. That's the path they seem to be going on, to say, well, let's tag Donald Trump with this, and then when the allegations
leverage,
and when the allegations against Hillary doing exactly the same thing and under Obama's direction or with Obama's knowledge comes out, then people could say, well, everybody does it, and do you really want? Or
you're just saying this because you did it, kind of thing. I mean, this is the classic. People have been talking about this a lot. Is it Saul Alinsky? Is it Goebbels who came up with this, but accuse others of that which you do?
Right. Now let's make sure what's behind us. I'm just curious. A cosmetic market. Okay, good. Just that it wasn't a sewage plant.
This is better here.
That's better. Okay, good. So the issue on this Ukraine thing, it turns out that there is a treaty between the United States and Ukraine that if we have criminal matters that go across our borders and we need to cooperate, there's an actual method to do all that. And guess who signed that treaty?
Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton, yeah. So, I mean, what Trump was doing was fully consistent with the law. And in fact, he's higher than Attorney General Barr, because Barr reports to him.
Right.
And Trump has a sworn duty to uphold the laws.
Right.
So here we have some person who was not in the room, maybe working with third parties to draft this complaint. We don't yet know who this person is.
A lot of people have spoken about how it's clearly written by a lawyer, the footnoting, the language.
And the issue is, the phrase is not high crimes and misdemeanors. A president can be impeached for treason. I forget the second thing, which is...
And other high crimes and misdemeanors in the Constitution. And now Gerald Nadler thinks, no, it doesn't need to be that. It can be whatever we say.
Yeah, Nadler is the final arbiter of the Constitution. So, I mean,
that guy's got to go. Can you impeach individual congresspeople?
Yeah, and not only that, you can, this is a note to President Obama, former President Obama and Clinton and Hillary, you can impeach people after they leave office. It's meant to be a stain, and like a really bad stain, kind of worse than the one Bill inflicts on people.
Put ice on that.
Exactly. And so you can.
Sorry, Juanita, not making fun of that.
Yeah, and so you could. What's going on here is we have a rush to bad judgment, orchestrated by unregulated globalists.
But it's not judgment. It's they're pushing a lie.
Right.
They're acting. Adam Schiff reading that fake transcript. I mean, where does he think?
Right. And the precedent being set here, I mean, the House is going to shift at some point. You set this precedent with Trump, and we have the House shifting, we have a Democratic president. Every president's going to be impeached from now on if we allow this precedent to keep going on.
As a political tool.
Right. And the thing is, Donald Trump, the latest numbers in like 72 hours has raised $15 million off this.
Whoa.
$5 million a day. That's almost $2 billion a year. We've got more than a year until the election. I mean, you are setting up the Democrats here, and really, it's AOC, that idiot. I mean, that fake Indian. Elizabeth Warren is, in the last 24 hours, said that she wants to see, it's not enough to have Trump impeached, she wants to see Kavanaugh impeached.
She said, I believe Blasey Ford.
She'd believe anything.
Exactly.
I mean, there's a person who, if I were a Native American, I would be absolutely furious with her. This is a person who was a lackluster student who managed to get a job at some Midwestern law school. I'm sure it's a fine school, but it's not the pinnacle of legal education, which supposedly Harvard is or Yale is or whatever. And here Harvard has a problem. They need an Indian, and they need people of color. And so she raises her hand. She's a Republican then, so we can get mad at her for that. Hey, I'm an Indian. My grandmother said I'm an Indian. And she gets plucked from obscurity in the Midwest. Now she's a full-time tenured law professor at Harvard, making a ton of money with all the perks and all the thing that comes with that.
A lot of questionable professors at Harvard Law.
Exactly, but still, I mean, this is somebody who has a lot of explaining to do and has no demonstrated proficiency in economics lawfully. This is somebody who can invent a persona and profit from it.
Right.
She shouldn't be president of the United States. She should be in jail.
Well, and I think it's also very dangerous to encourage this attitude of, I believe Blasey Ford. That's not the way the law works.
Right.
She does not have the right to be believed. That's an absurd lie being told to the people of the United States. I got to go back and see who said that in Congress, but no right to be believed. Kavanaugh has the right to be presumed innocent, and when people who are running for president contribute to this, court of public opinion and guilt by vote on the internet, that is extremely dangerous to all of us. It can't be based on what you believe, and what evidence has that woman presented. How does a lawyer look at someone who every witness she named either doesn't remember the incident, wasn't there, or can't corroborate what she says? That is a terrible witness by any count.
Well, what we're looking for here, I think some people are looking for, is mob rule. You want to be part of the mob, and you think that's a great idea until the mob turns on you.
Exactly.
And so
that's why we need law and order and proper adherence to the Constitution. Well, Charles, I think we've sort of seen what we can see here. Is there anything else that we?
No, I think we should maybe take a pause.
Whoops! Pause for the cause. All right. Well, very good. So that's it from downtown Sarajevo.
Great.
Very good. That was pretty interesting for people to see, Charles. There's a couple other little kind of B-roll things that we had from yesterday when we were scouting these locations that people can take a look at. It's getting kind of closer to dinner time here, so the hotel bar might start to fill up with people. What else did we want to cover? This is a bit of a non-traditional Sunday with Charles episode.
Well, it's the road trip series, the first road trip one.
Yeah.
But on a more somber note, people extol these politicians, former leaders, national leaders that get involved with the UN or special envoys. They get involved with these different disasters around the world. But there's not enough study about the maybe, let's just charitably say, the unintended bad consequences that can result when do-gooders run riot around the world without actually being overseen responsibly. And we came here to show our viewers some of the bad aftertaste of the escapade from 91 to 95, whose true root causes have not really been studied as deeply. It's a complex matter. It's not like the conflict just happened overnight. There's centuries of history that need to be explored, and there are all kinds of cross currents. But behind all that, there now are family members associated with 8,372 dead people.
That's a really shocking number. I don't know if most people in America know about that, remember that, ever knew about that. This is a pretty recent thing that's basically been scrubbed from the national memory.
Right, and the power of technology, the power to limit what you see in a search result, the power of academia to decide that World War I, why should we study that? That's old news.
Right. Let's just do something to make that happen again.
Let's start World War III. But so we can really study it in current events and politics. So I think it would be nice. It'd be very important that before somebody swanned off to Georgetown School of Public Service, or God forbid the Clinton School of Public Service, and decided that that person should get involved with the State Department or being an ambassador or whatever around the world, they should have to really understand and know about how things can go really badly wrong when arrogant idiots insert themselves into these deeply conjoined struggles that have a lot of nuance to them, and decide that they're just going to drop bombs from the air rather than get involved on the ground, or they're not really going to go and make sure that the people who truly were hurt here, and the families that truly were hurt, find a way to get back on their feet, that they leave behind institutions in this place that can weather a resurgence of the kind of hostilities that we saw from 91 to 95.
Right now, we're hearing some of the fruits of the EU, those dogs barking. Was it you who told? No, it was someone we were speaking to here who said that some EU ruling said they can't.
Right. Well, you have a problem here in this country with packs of stray dogs. And so apparently these geniuses, who have decided Euro sausages and the way to regulate your life with yet another gigantic bureaucracy in the Department of Catering and fancy banquets, rather than deal with these packs of stray dogs, they've decided that you can, on the one hand, you have to protect the dogs. They haven't gone as far as Elizabeth Warren and Hillary Clinton want to go, saying you can abort babies after they're born. Well, let's protect the wild dogs, and let's kill the children.
Wow.
I mean, it shows you how crazy this whole European Union experiment is.
And you were just mentioning, Charles, that in the 1990s, when the United States got involved in the war here, that was the big mantra, no boots on the ground. This, to me, seems like a very post-Vietnam way of softening the marketing pitch for a war somewhere, because it's sort of, to the American public, feels like, oh, well, our men and women aren't going to be killed over there, so maybe it's okay. But it's a big social engineering lie, because technology has gotten to the point where you really don't need as many people on the ground to cause the devastating chaos that can be caused by planes and drones now and missiles and all that. But again, I didn't know that much and still don't know that much about World War I, but to actually see the spot where Archduke Ferdinand was shot, it brings it to reality for you, and it's caused me to think for the first time, what if that was a false flag? What if that was a social engineered play to convince people somehow that there needed to be a war? Because it's all we're seeing now is that they take a phone conversation and they spin it into, oh, he's guilty.
Right. Well, if you think back to World War I don't know how much walking around rural France you've done, but if you go around, so if you go around rural France, you'll come to these small villages, and the cemetery will be filled. Just gigantic numbers of American and British and Irish and other troops that were killed in these battles and trench warfare. World War I was mustard gas. It was really brutal fighting. And one of the canards, I think, that the globalists like to use, and Bush was very guilty of this, is that there's such a thing as a limited war or a nice war, where you're not going to kill that many people, and because I only killed 20 people instead of 2,000, there's nothing wrong with it. The fact is, when you make a decision that you can't talk a problem through and you can't negotiate it and you're going to settle it with force, in World War II, we firebombed Dresden, we firebombed, I believe, Berlin. We firebombed Tokyo. We dropped nuclear weapons on Japan. And people need to understand, and our founders understood that there is no such thing as a nice war.
Right.
Which is why before you wage a war, the Constitution says the House of Representatives has to declare war.
Oh, that's out the window for many presidencies. They're just a presidential action, and suddenly, it calls into question really what is a war versus a military action, or however. Again, it's more semantics, it's more marketing, it's how they sell the war on TV. Remember when Trump fired those missiles into Syria? We had, I forget who the moron was. We were like, look at those beautiful missiles. It's like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Right. Right. Well, I think part of that is too many video games. You use video games, and it's sort of fun to kill the enemy, and nobody really hurts, and you become
people.
desensitized to it. And so, left behind here in Sarajevo and in Greater Bosnia and Herzegovina are festering wounds. There are scars and there are festering wounds because we have not really understood why the conflict came to light. We accepted accords that really didn't put an end to the underlying problems. And across Europe and around the world, unfortunately, the United States and other allies and opponents are just too quick to turn differences into armed conflict. And I'd really like to see, if we leave behind a legacy, it would be nice for those to change the incentive system so that the people are quick to say, oh, let's bomb Iran, or let's do this, or let's do that. When it doesn't work, their lives and their family lives go first. I'm joking, of course, but I mean, there needs to be much more of a penalty when policymakers rush us into a bad war.
I agree with that, Charles. And we've heard a lot about eugenics. People send me emails. I don't know that much about this, but Agenda 2030, 21, whatever it is. And we've heard that the more people are looking into Jeffrey Epstein, and there was a whole eugenics agenda there with him trying to freeze his brain or his penis or whatever, and propagate his genes.
He was a normal guy.
Right. But the war here was also about ethnic cleansing, eugenics, and then it causes me to wonder to what extent, these eugenicists who we don't really know what the details were. There weren't a million people around with cell phones recording this assassination of Archduke Ferdinand, and the individual independent citizen journalists who are capturing these little moments of Hillary Clinton tripping and falling as she gets into a van, of the gunshots in Las Vegas. We're really at a time that it's unprecedented in how individuals are really empowered to reveal these hoaxes is essentially what they are, and hopefully that can make a difference moving forward.
I hope so. And in addition, what we see is that there's a growing awareness that corporate-owned, multinational-oriented proponents of unregulated globalist media, they are swallowing this deep statist lines hook, line, and sinker.
Well, they're part of it. They make up a critical ingredient of the deep state. And I'm glad you brought that up. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but all this traveling, you caused me to remember that I need to let our viewers know that this show can't happen without your support. And I hope that people will go to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth and become sponsors, because Charles has some great plans for places that we can go to, and I certainly can't do it without the support of the audience. So I really want to thank everybody who has supported us. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, Charles.
That's quite all right.
But I know you took some photos when you went to the concentration camp.
Right. Yeah, and you're going to see a bunch of those. I think we'll close this out, and I'd like you, the viewers, really try to watch all these views. Soak them in.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, everybody.